Welcome to my channel. Today, I've got a full hour of the creepiest, most disturbing, and absolutely terrifying Reddit stories for you. These are real stories shared by real Reddit users. Whether you're driving, working, relaxing, or trying to fall asleep, I hope you enjoy listening. Before we get started, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It genuinely means a lot to me and helps support the channel more than you know. All right? No more waiting. Let's dive into the first thread. I think I'm being stalked. Okay, so I want to address this before I post. I'm a dancer. I work at a strip club. I know it kind of comes with the territory, but that's no excuse. Please, if you have an issue with my profession or don't want to give constructive advice, then please stop reading now. And I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm getting more spooked by the hour, the more that I think of it. I'm hoping that I am blowing things out of proportion, but I can't help the way that I think. So this theoretically started 2 months ago when I was at the bank. On Mondays, I typically go to the bank to deposit my earnings from the week before. When I get to the teller, she addresses me as my stage name. She made a joke along the lines of, I was looking for Nova in the system, and then told me I didn't recognize you without the cat ears. I told her to call me by my government name. The rest of the encounter went by without incident. I have no idea who this woman is, aside from her working at the bank. I've never seen her in the club. I've never seen her outside the bank. In a male-heavy environment, I tend to notice women and remember the faces of women a lot easier. And I would definitely remember seeing a girl from the bank inside of the club. I was told to tell a manager or call corporate. I didn't do that. I'll be honest, I just gave myself a few days to cool off. And eventually, the incident went on the back burner. Fast forward to today. The same teller is handing me deposit. She says, the last time I saw you, you were in a black bikini top. Again, I cannot remember seeing her anywhere other than the bank. I have no idea where she's seeing me. I don't post anything on socials regarding my dancing. I definitely don't post outfits. I don't know how she knows what I'm wearing. Feel free to tell me that I'm overreacting, but I'm also looking for advice on how to detect a stalker, and cameras will be picked up tomorrow for my car. Even if this turns out to be nothing, I've still been meaning to get a dash cam. Thanks in advance. OP's line of work might be considered sensitive by some people, but having their identity exposed could be extremely dangerous. Just take a look at the comments below. One user wondered, why don't you question her back? I don't remember seeing you at the club. When did you come in? And others said, I wouldn't even say club. Then others said, let the teller tell you information. Don't willingly give any details. Also could maybe switch banks. Whether or not it's stalking, this person still has your banking and personal information. And even if you move the bank, gets that new Addy too. This may not be necessary, but could at least create a little peace of mind. Stay safe, love. That's priority. If the day comes where you feel scared or threatened, and I'm sure none of this is news to you or not already done by you, but for everyone's sake, have protection, self-safety when you enter and leave the club. Mace, sharp self-defense, keychain, alarm chain, etc. I think there's a way to get your phone to call 911 automatically. If it hears you say something specific, but I don't have info on that personally, maybe get a ride to drop you off. And have people walk you out, watch which cars leave after you, ask for the teller's name if she doesn't have a name tag. She could be a part of a trafficking ring, and she's the lure. You are not overreacting. You're being aware and vigilant. In this world, you have to be prepared for fucking anything, sadly. Especially as a woman. Love you, lady. Proud of you for being vigilant. Trust your gut. Another said she could be a part of a trafficking ring, and she's the lure. I don't think she's about to be kidnapped by the Albanians from Taken. But I do agree she should let the teller do the telling with a big smile, a little angry eye. I don't recognize you. Where do I know you from? The teller is probably just a person being an ass, and a user gave the OP advices. Next time you're about to walk into the bank, secretly have your phone voice recording going in your pocket or hand or whatever. Download the recording to iCloud or a friend or something right away. And every time, if she's your teller, another comment said, I've been the mayor for 17 years. And I will tell you right now that you need to talk to her manager about her inappropriate behavior. There's certain Fight Club rules about calling people out in public, and it goes both ways between customers and dancers. If you made it clear to her that you want to be referred to as your government name, then that's the bottom line. Not only that, she should not have referred to you by anything else than your government name, because that is seriously fucking unprofessional. You need to document this and talk to her manager. And I would highly recommend getting this on paper, i.e. email. So you have a paper trail. Just because you work in the adult industry doesn't mean you don't deserve the same level of professionalism that everyone else receives at a financial institution. And someone said, in regards to documenting, some voice recorder apps work even if your phone is always on display that shows the clock when you don't have your screen on. I use Voice Recorder and Voice Memos by Simple Design Limited on Android. If you turn the app on before you go in, it will record audio without having to mess with your phone at all. One user replied, some states, it's illegal to record people without their consent. They need to check if their state allows that. Someone replied, I believe it's always legal in areas where there is no expectation of privacy. For example, in this situation, the bank could probably record employees and customers without consent. And in that case, customers would have the same freedom to record without two-party consent. Another user made a pretty convincing point saying, yeah, I know your secret-esque call-out feels like a veiled threat for lack of a better term. Like you said, there are pretty universal Fight Club rules when it comes to adult industries like this. Also, even if you were somehow born yesterday and blissfully naive to adult industry social etiquette, pointing out details of someone's outfit or other behaviors you observed with no other context versus something more normal, like, oh, do you work at X? I think I saw you there. Reads like a person spying on Andor, trying to intimidate you. It feels a little too observant. Her continuing to push comments like this after OP set boundaries makes it all that much more alarming. The whole situation sounds so odd. So it's tough to have a strong guess on what motivated this bank teller to make such comments or what her ultimate goal was in doing so. I don't doubt OP's statement that women definitely stand out in her work environment. So if the teller wasn't physically inside, where is she getting her information? Does the teller have a husband or romantic partner whom she's keeping tabs on for one reason or another, who happens to frequent OP's place of business? But if that's the case, how would get info on what OP was wearing? Is there perhaps someone the teller works with, someone not customer facing in back office, operations, security, etc., who frequents OP's club, who might be sharing the latest gossip with the teller by the water cooler? Is there any chance the teller has ties to someone who works with OP, who may not like her? These types of workplaces can be pretty competitive, and coworkers might have an idea of where OP does her banking and would have a close-up look at what she wore to work on a regular basis. Alternatively, I'm not sure how close OP is with her employer or how much she trusts them, but is there any chance photos, video, etc. are being taken from inside the club and being distributed online somewhere without OP's knowledge? If not by club management, something like that could also be the work of a rogue employee or even a customer. How tight is security there? Are people instantly removed for breaking out a camera phone? Is security keeping an eye out for people in meta glasses? Or theory along other lines, not sure if OP's club has a specific dress code, theme, or niche audience style, but there are certain types of adult clubs where customers may be more likely to dress up or act as an alter ego of themselves for discretion, fantasy, escape, etc. Some disguises can be more elaborate than others and could even include presenting as a different gender identity. Note, this may not apply in OP's case, but tossing all possibilities out there, they know their environment better than I do. Banks tend to have pretty conservative dress codes. It's possible the teller could present themselves very differently outside of work, particularly when in an environment designed for adults only. All this to say, maybe the teller is truly there and hiding in plain sight. That doesn't excuse them completely disregarding social norms related to these environments or pushing boundaries, just saying there is a possibility the teller was in fact in the club when OP was. Either way, OP did the right thing by asking to change banks, even if the teller is just a clueless weirdo who thought she was making friendly small talk. Hard to believe, considering the red flags, nothing good was going to come out of OP. Continuing to go to that bank. Business. As usual, I also don't think that the teller apologizing or crying is an indicator of harmless intentions. While I'm not sure how the confrontation between OP's friend and the teller actually played out, you'd think there would be more of a response of confusion or trying to set the record straight. Had the teller really thought they were being friendly and had done nothing wrong? Honestly, I think that comment makes a lot of sense. But anyway, let's keep going. Further down, someone said, "You need to speak to a manager? What an effing weirdo." Even if you were a librarian, it's really weird behavior to tell clients behind the counter, "Oh, I saw you in your yellow cardigan." It's a creepy thing to do no matter what. Ew. And then another commented, "I once saw my GP at an event. I went to stand somewhere else before she noticed me. And during our next appointment, I did mention that I spotted her, but also said didn't want to make things weird because she has a right to a private life. So I tried to make sure we wouldn't bump into each other once I knew she was there." She said she appreciated it. Someone commented, "My first day at my job, we had a holiday party for the kids' preschool, and in walked my gynecologist. I absolutely pretended to have never met him in my life." A lot of people advised OP to talk to the manager. One comment said, "I see a lot of people saying to talk to the manager, and I completely understand that, but you do also need to protect yourself. She obviously knows where you work, and you don't know why she knows where you work. At the moment, she has a lot more information about you than you do about her, including whether or not she is an actual threat. It seems like you've got very little to lose by asking her what the deal is. She's already started the conversation, so there's no reason to hold back and not be direct. Of course, she absolutely deserves for you to speak to the management about her inappropriate behavior, but I feel like it would be a good idea to get more information first. If she were to get reprimanded or fired, there may be retaliation. If, for instance, it turns out that she's connected to some guy who's actually watching you and talking to her, then it's hard to watch your back if you don't even know who or what you're looking for. Maybe with some direct questioning, you can get enough details to figure out what you're dealing with. If you haven't already, speak to whoever you need to at your job. Talk to security and make sure they are aware and keeping an eye out for anyone acting particularly strange or hyper-focused on you. I would imagine there's policies about walking you to your car transportation, but sometimes that gets kind of slack over time. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. I had a stalker when bartending, and I know it can be a lot to deal with. Several days later, OP came back with an update revealing that this morning I went to the bank with my best friend, also a dancer, and asked her to go in and see if she knew who the teller was. As much as I love her, she has a tendency to get a bit overzealous and asked the woman how she knew me. She also verbally reprimanded her for not exercising discretion, and the teller started crying. I had to step in and tell them both to relax a little. The teller just started spitting out "I'm sorries" and disappeared into a back hallway. I talked to a manager for the first time and simply told him what happened over the past couple of months. He said that it was unacceptable and offered his apologies. I told him I wanted to pull all of my accounts from the bank. He did try and make it right by talking to the teller, but she didn't want to come out and address me. The manager also told me that in the future, I could submit a customer complaint form to corporate, but also admitted that it usually falls on dead ear. And I should just tell him personally, but the damage was done. I really didn't want this woman to cry. I don't like seeing people cry, but it's about protecting myself and my own privacy. After the update, one user commented, "Is it possible that one of the men who work at the bank is visiting your work and they're gossiping about you in the break room? Could be something like male employee? Oh gosh, you got that hot dancer again today, eh? Oh man, she's so amazing. She has this one black bikini top law www female employee. Okay, chill. And then maybe the female employee is judgy about your job and trying to make you feel embarrassed or weird. So she's dropping details from your performances." And then the OP said, "Theoretically, I guess, there are only 3 bank tellers, and they are all women. I've never seen a manager in person. I suppose it could be a guy, but I have no way of confirming that at this time. Even then, never saw one in the flesh. But still a possibility." The story seemed to end there until OP came back with one final update. "I figured it out. Mystery solved. I'll make an actual post when I get home and unwind a bit." Unfortunately, before the truth could ever come out, OP's account was banned for reasons that are still unknown. And just like that, the story came to an abrupt end. To this day, no one knows what really happened or why any of it unfolded the way it did. It's a creepy story in more ways than one. I mean, just imagine a complete stranger casually commenting on your underwear. Yeah, that's a pretty unsettling thought. All right. Now get ready for what might be the creepiest Reddit story I've ever come across. The creepiest and most confusing encounter of my life. This is a throwaway account. I'm not a native English speaker, so please consider that I, 23 years old, male, live in an apartment on the 3rd floor, top floor, And the area I live in is not that active and loud. The population is also very low in this area. To give you an idea, you'll barely see people walking on the street after 7 p.m. Although there are many buildings and houses in this area, most of them are unoccupied and some even abandoned. I came here in 2018, and this place was suggested to me by one of my college friends who was already living on the second floor when I came. In 2019, she got a job in Sweden and thus left the apartment. Since then, the whole building has only 3 families, one of them being the landlord living in it. I have tried to shift to another place, but due to some issues, I have to stay here for 3 more months due to my employment bond before shifting to my late grandmother's house in a different city. The reason I told you this will get cleared when you read further. So this happened a few days back, but I couldn't make this post earlier as I was busy sorting things out. You'll know what things. I came back from my office at around 7 p.m., kept my bag, changed my clothes, cooked myself dinner, and around 9 p.m., I washed the dishes and was ready to get to the bed and watch TV till I slept. Around 10:15, when I was watching TV on my bed, I noticed something that scared the hell out of me. There is a window behind my TV, and that window is on the front wall of my apartment, where there is the entrance door of my house. The curtains behind the TV were slightly opened, but as it was completely dark outside the window, I couldn't notice the difference until I noticed that a person was sticking its face to the window and staring right into my eyes. I jumped from my bed and shut the TV plug down and quickly went to check the door. Thankfully, it was locked from inside. Now, as it was completely dark in my room, I slowly stepped back to check that person. But suddenly, I heard knocks on my front door. The person called me, and I recognized that it was my landlord. I opened the gate, and it was my landlord with his wife. I don't know why, but I could clearly notice that they were trying to control their laughter while they were talking to me. The wife said that she heard some unusual voices from my apartment. That's why they were checking if someone else was in my apartment. I am the only person living on the 3rd floor, and the landlord lives on the 2nd. After that, we had a talk for a couple of minutes, and they left. My heart was still racing as I have never experienced such things in my entire life. So then I went to sleep, and not much happened that night. Now, the very next morning, around 5 a.m., I woke up to pee, and after that, out of curiosity, I slightly opened the curtain and saw through the window to find out they were lingering right outside my house with what I could figure out few keys in their hands and were speaking to each other by making the lowest sound possible. Alarm bells rang in my head, and I knew I had to be on high alert. I stood there for a few minutes until they went down. I was pretty sure that as soon as I left my office, they'd break into my house. So I took a leave and stayed home to clear some doubts I had. It was pretty obvious that not seeing me leave the apartment would clearly affect their actions, if any they were planning to make, but eventually it didn't happen that way. I made sure to avoid making any noise and even kept the AC and other equipment shut. I wished, God, please prove me wrong. But oh boy, this bastard came around 12 p.m. to my apartment, knocked 10 to 15 times, waited for 10 minutes, before again knocking several times, louder this time, and then went down to his apartment. I waited as I was getting countless ideas of what was about to happen. Roughly after 5 minutes, he came back, and this time I could see his wife was also there. They didn't speak a single word and did the most obvious thing, opened the lock of my front door. No, I didn't know they had a duplicate key. As they opened the door, I took a kitchen knife in my hands and walked into the living room. The wife screamed loudly when she saw me. WTF? Are you guys doing? I shouted at them. They were carrying a poly bag with something in it, which they immediately kept in their pocket. Obviously, in my local language, I called them names and told them that I am calling the police. The guy told me that there was a leakage on a ceiling. That's why he came to check if I had left any water faucet. He made several stupid and senseless excuses, which clearly showed that he was lying, but they never allowed me to check in their house for any such leakage. We had a dispute, and these Futimes curs were not ready to admit their mistake. I talked to the other families living in the building, but nothing much happened. I had replaced the door lock on that very same day. I also called the police, but their response was disappointing at best. It seemed I was on my own in dealing with these creeps. I didn't press charges, but I am very eager to take action as these guys are behaving insanely strangely since they are behaving like I have done something wrong to them. They are pretty frustrated and clearly don't want me to stay here anymore. Today, I called my friend who went to Sweden and told her everything. Her response gave me chills. She told me, Before leaving the place, she noticed that the landlord and her wife used to peek from their window whenever she came to or went from her apartment. There is something wrong with these guys. What might be their motive behind all this? I need immediate advice, as I am still sitting in this apartment with these creeps present around me. I don't know about you guys, but this story gave me chills. Let's take a look at the comments, because someone said, blink indoor security cameras for the time being and stay on high alert. They've most likely been in other apartments without them ever knowing. They're probably thieves. Then another replied, and a Ring doorbell. It can notify you whenever anyone is at the door. And then someone said, this is a great one. We got a Ring to make sure our dogs were being fed by the sitter when we were out of town. It rings on our phones every time someone approaches our door. It's loud enough that someone at the door hears it coming from inside. It rings if anyone approaches. If you have it set up to notify a phone by ringing loudly in your apartment, then whenever they approach, they'll know they've been recorded and you're alerted. They won't know if you're home or not. It'll seem like you are. Can you approach whatever's keeping you legally at this place and tell them you feel threatened for your life and ask what recourse you have? Get a statement from your friend in writing to add to your statement. Further down, someone said, since they thought you were not home, and since they didn't offer a legitimate reason for a landlord to enter the property, I can only think of a few reasons. They were going to hide a camera or something else in your apartment. They want to steal something from you. They want to snoop through your stuff. If you are able, you might add a couple hidden cameras in your apartment. They make nanny cams that are in stuffed animals, picture frames, digital clocks, etc. You could consult Roam Security for more ideas. Good luck, OP, and stay safe. And an user commented, I feel like the landlord husband and wife pair are stealing from you and your friend. Maybe they might even purposely peep that way to scare you and her. Somehow they both seem experienced with all the weird behavior, such as being able to pretend and lie, and just the way they behave. They might both be kleptomaniacs and peeping toms, in my opinion. It's best to put a camera in your apartment, and even though you've changed the locks, make sure to always lock all the windows. Get double locks too, just to be safe. And lock all your valuables. Then another comment replied, if they were carrying a bag that could fit in his pocket, I'd guess a camera. Some people said, yes, that's true. I feel like the landlord couple might be either thieves or peeping toms, but that's just my personal suspicions. Especially since the friend who moved out also said she used to experience them watching her go in and out of her apartment. That's just very sad and weird overall. There is a worse option than them trying to record OP for their sexual gratification. Could they be trying to make money from the recordings by sharing them for profit? They may not be making enough renting the apartments, as most are vacant, and this is how they supplement their income. I'd be worried about that. What do you guys think? Is that a viable option? I'm so sorry, OP. This is so disturbing. Could the police search their place for recordings of you or other tenants, including your friend, or seize their computers? I know in the US that would be difficult to get the police to do. Please stay safe. Someone gave OP advice. Check to see if they were trying to access cameras that they have already installed in your apartment. There are lots of instructions online on how to do that with your smartphone. Get a Ring camera if you can afford it. Warn anyone else living in the building. You can keep an eye out for each other. Make sure your landlord knows you have reported the matter to the police, and make sure they understand that if anything happens, they'll be the first people questioned. Also point out that you won't hesitate to go to the police again. It's not unusual for cops to ignore the first report. Put all this in writing. Can you get blackout shades so they can't peek in at night no matter what position your curtains are in? Look for someplace to stay for the last few months. Your landlord may let you out of the lease if you become a hassle to them. There were a lot of different opinions in the comments, with some of the most notable ones being maybe they came to retrieve the memory card from the hidden cameras in your apartment. They used to spy on your friend. Do a search. There are apps that can help. What do you guys think about OP's story? I'd love to hear your thoughts. So let me know in the comments below. Now let's move on to the third story in today's video, titled Terrified. This is so far outside my hula hoop of normal that I'm hesitant to post it out of fear of sounding crazy. I'm sure no one will actually read this entire thing, but either way, please forgive the long post. We have lived in our current home for 6 years. I'm 43 years old, female, and I started sleeping in our guest bedroom rather than with my husband because he snores and keeps me awake. I've been doing this around 8 months. Around 3 weeks ago, I had the most disturbing dream I've ever had. It felt like my soul was being dragged from my body, like whatever it is that makes me ME was literally being pulled out. It felt like I fought like hell to stay in my body. And I woke up terrified and relieved. It was just a dream the next night and every night since I've been woken up at all hours by what feels like something quickly crawling atop the covers from my feet towards my face. It feels like it has 4 feet and is about the weight of a kitten. The sensation is so real that I reflexively throw the covers off of me every time. Unsurprisingly, nothing is actually there. When I cut on the light, one night last week, I was sleeping on my stomach and something very heavy sat on the small of my back. I heard the bed creak under its weight. I was so scared I couldn't move nor scream. I Googled and attributed the sensation to hypnopompic hallucinations. I felt relieved. Saturday night, my husband was out of town. Therefore, I chose to sleep in the master bedroom because our bed is so much more comfortable than the one in the guest room. I was awoken to the door to the laundry room, shaking vigorously. It was loud, but again, I just assumed it was the hypnopompic hallucinations I had read about and tried to go back to sleep. The reason I am terrified is because last night I couldn't sleep. I never went to sleep. I didn't feel sleepy. I was up reading a book in the master bedroom just before midnight. The damn laundry room door started shaking again. I heard it and I saw it and I was not asleep nor even sleepy. I was wide awake. I do not drink nor use drugs, not even Advil. To make matters worse, when my husband got home from his trip a minute ago, I asked him about the door shaking. He said that he's not sure what that is. He says for the past few weeks, it'll just open in the middle of the night. Now, I'm even more terrified because clearly this is real and I'm not going crazy. Or if I am, my husband is going with me. I have no idea what to do. I am Christian. I believe in good and evil, but I have never experienced nor even been open to experiencing anything like this. I am terrified to go to sleep. Now, does anyone have any advice to make this stop or to find a simple explanation to this? We are putting up cameras in the laundry room tonight. Has anyone else experienced something similar? And I don't drink nor use drugs, but should I try to use a sleep aid to knock myself out, or is that going to make it worse? Too long didn't read. Presumed bad dreams have now become very real experiences while conscious. Incidents have also been experienced by my husband. Please help us make it stop. I'm so scared. I'll be honest, I have nightmares from time to time too. But what OP experienced was on a completely different level. Let's take a look at the comments and see what everyone had to say. I would also set up a camera to watch you sleep and see if you see anything making impressions in the blanket, like they are walking on the bed, or just to see if anything is happening right before you wake up. Throw the blanket off, etc. Then a comment said, first step is to stop being fearful, because if it's negative entities, then negativity feeds on fear and will only stick around longer. Dig deep and find your inner kick-ass attitude. Or better yet, create a positive and fun and high vibrational atmosphere, because negative entities can't exist in the same space as positive energy. If you're going to argue with your spouse, then I suggest you leave the home and do it elsewhere, because that will only feed it. You can play happy, upbeat music on speakers throughout the day, or spiritual music or loving and healing frequencies such as 528 hertzes can be found on YouTube over the speakers throughout the day and evening. Play games, laugh, have parties. It can also be beneficial to open all of the windows and doors to create more energy flow as you play music or burn sage or use angel tuning forks from room to room. Visualize pushing the energy out of the house as you do this, as it can be very powerful and empowering. Overall, have the attitude that you're in charge here. It's your space, and you won't tolerate negativity. Another thing to think about is that sometimes health issues can lower our frequencies to a point where these energies can sneak in. I've had chronic health issues and have dealt with sleep paralysis. On occasion, it actually all kicked off when I was visiting my ex in his moldy apartment. So the more you can limit your toxic load, be as healthy as you can in mind and body and boundaries, you will be better equipped to handle negativity and negative entities. Then someone agreed to this comment. This is the best advice. Another added all of this, plus Gregorian chants of exorcism. The black and white still image one will help protect you. Nods 13H of beautiful a cappella music to sleep to. Right below that reply, one commenter shared a very similar experience. Hello, I am going through the same thing. I have had paranormal events happening for 3 years. They come in when my cat's spirit come visit me. I have had the 4-leg thing attached to me every time I am in bed or sitting. It at first came off as being one of the cats. It purrs and cuddles up next to me. I have been fooled. It's a demon. I tried to make it go away, but it won't. It attacks me when I won't let it touch me sexually. It is now messing with my energy. It makes my heart beat so fast, like I have just been scared. It makes me have hot flashes, then cold. It holds me down, and sometimes it attaches to my body, where I try to lay down and makes me very uncomfortable. Makes me have panic attacks. I waited too long to get it out. Don't be afraid. Go get help. I went to the Catholic Church for help. I had my house blessed. I pray and read from the Bible every day out loud with my BF who sleeps in the other room and doesn't have any problems. It has not left. Yet I was so exhausted after it kept me energized for 2 nights. We went to a hotel and I got rest. The second night we went to the hotel, it followed, take this very seriously. Get help. The Catholic Church has been seeing lots of families being under attack lately. Read some of my other posts. I have been dealing with this stuff for a while now. My family has a gift. They see ghosts and are sensitive. I got the gift. My third eye is open. I can see portals where they enter my home. I don't want this gift anymore. I just want it to stop. I got my house blessed and have many people praying for me. This is just a tip of the iceberg of stuff that I deal with. Next comment. Another said, my mom described the feeling of being dragged out of her body too. She sleeps with crossed silverware under her bed now. And then the OP replied, I've never heard of the silverware hack, but best believe I'm marching to grab some spoons as we speak. Someone asked the OP, did this help at all? And the OP commented, we have a preacher in the Methodist Church. I'm not sure how much that differs from a priest in the Catholic Church. I'm honestly embarrassed to ask anyone locally. It's a small town, and I'm scared someone will think I'm crazy. I feel crazy, so maybe they'll be right. Meanwhile, a comment said, your experiences are not that uncommon. I'm surprised that you suddenly, after 6 years, are having these paranormal experiences. It's hard to make sense of what suddenly changed. Something was brought into the house. It could have been picked up somewhere and attached to one of you. Here's the thing. I have been removing negative entities for decades. And the bottom line is, they find sensitive and vulnerable people to scare so they can feed off the fear. That's probably the reason your husband has not been terrorized. Like you have SO, you need to deal with your fear. These are conscious beings like you and me who victimize people just like criminals. It's like criminal squatters who invade homes and you can't get rid of them. The first thing to deal with these paranormal squatters is what you would do with human squatters. You have to decide that you are not going to put up with them. You have to tell them it's your home and you will not put up with their living there, that they are bullies and have no right to remain in your home. Tell them they leave now or kick them out with an exorcism and it won't be pleasant for them. I used to do exorcisms but have found they leave beforehand. If you are courageous, firm, convicted, and determined, fighting with paranormal entities is a mental, emotional one. Being mentally and emotionally strong is key. If you need a full exorcism, I'll show you how to do that. Another commenter had no doubt that they're demons. A demon grabbed my soul. I was screaming while the demon male walked to my balcony with me on his shoulder, and he threw my soul off my balcony. I woke up believing it was a dream, but it wasn't because it was so real. Say, Jesus, if you are a born again, you can anoint your home with oil and put on "You Are the Almighty God" on repeat as you sleep. Edit, I have been saying Jesus every time I feel watched. I also cast the demons out in Jesus' name because I am born again. And Jesus gave me authority to cast demons out of my body and property. Jesus did not give you the spirit demon of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Then someone replied, exactly. I've never been a born again, but our differences are window dressing. Agreed. Demons are real. Why else would the ruling class waste time worshiping them? When a commented wrote, sounds like a demonic attachment, any ongoing sins of any kind? Stop, pray the Our Father, and use Jesus' name, spoken out loud to revoke it as soon as any physical activity takes place. Remember, they are only allowed to do what God allows. If you can find why it's being allowed, you can stop it, but don't ever get it twisted. God's in 100% charge, not them. Contact a Catholic church as soon as possible as well, or whatever church you feel can help, but Catholics are most versed on the thorough cleaning required. God bless. The OP replied, I don't mean to sound whiny, but why us? We aren't perfect, but we sure aren't the worst either. What did we do to interest the demon? Below that comment. Another asked, do you collect or own antiques? Bring anything home recently? or are you living in an older home? Then OP replied, saying that we do have a few antiques in our home. I'm not a big shopper, so nothing has really been brought into the house as of late. I'm definitely a minimalist. At this point, the story became difficult to explain, even from a psychological perspective. One commenter said, "This gave me chills. I'm not religious, very skeptical about paranormal things. Psychological thinker, and what an explanation for everything. However, I am currently experiencing some strange currents around my house. I have not been sleeping with my boyfriend in our bed because I am afraid of waking him up due to nightmares. I have been having more and more often lately." Then the OP responded, "Do you mind telling me what you've been experiencing? It just helps to know that if others are experiencing similar things, that maybe I'm not going crazy." Luckily, OP came back a few days later with an update revealing that update from last night. We set up the camera in the laundry room around 7:00 p.m. last night. I chose to sleep in the master bedroom with my husband. I never could go to sleep because I was waiting to hear the door rattle. Around 2:00 a.m., I hadn't heard a sound, so I gave up and went to the spare bedroom to read. My cat and I snuggled up, and after a while, I started to get sleepy, so I cut the light out. Max, my cat, made biscuits and then curled up behind my knees. It wasn't 3 minutes until I felt the crawler coming up my legs. I stayed still and calmly told it to go away. That it wasn't welcome in my home. It stopped. I settled back down. Then the bed beside me felt like it indented, and whatever it is started making biscuits. Max shot up and ran out of the room. I tried to stay calm and keep my fear down. I can tell you the Lord is tired of hearing his prayer from me. I turned on the light, got my Bible, and read a few passages, and then I put the Bible on my legs and fell asleep. I know that sounds unhinged, but I was attempting any sort of protecting myself. I didn't feel it again, but it was 5:00 a.m. at this point. As someone else stated, since we had the camera rolling, the door never rattled and the camera caught nothing. I might put the camera in the guest room tonight. If I don't get some sleep, I'm going to lose my mind. Thank y'all for all the advice, prayers, and positive energy. Please keep it coming. I am hanging on by a thread. Right after that update, the comments became even more active. One commenter said, "Did you meditate lately, or have you done anything occultish tarot cards? Reading astral maps. Don't get me wrong, but something happened. Or does your husband have a good friend that visits you and is involved in the occult, or does your husband visit some esoteric circles? Maybe you should ask him too if he recently got into something. Did you bought some antiques? Some can be cursed, Af. You have an entity right there. Could be a poltergeist, but it also sounds like a spirit that haunts you. Incubus too. I'm not trying to scare you, but it can happen. Psalm 51 is helpful too. 12 times in a row. Holy water sprinkled over the walls, yourself, bed, etc. Burning some frankincense, not something else. All of this must be done daily. Ask the priest to come and bless your house. Confess and take the Holy Communion weekly if they let you. Otherwise, at least once every 3 weeks. If you're serious about it, start fasting, eat like a vegan, and pray in the morning before 9 a.m. and at night after 10 p.m. at midnight would be the best. Virgin Mary is a great protector. If you keep fighting it, you'll send it back from where it came from. It's still important to have an idea of what made it come to you. If you did nothing related to the occult, it might be sent by someone. If you do the praying plus fasting plus Holy Communion and you didn't get involved into magico cult esoteric, don't be surprised if you hear somebody near you that has issues. You'll send it back if somebody tried to hurt you by otherworldly means. I really wonder what made it attack you. He also included a photo. OP quickly replied, "Oh my goodness, I didn't think about this. His sister visited 3 weeks ago. She's not into the occult per se, but is very into crystals, energies, frequencies, etc. I don't really believe in that stuff, but I pretended to be interested in it when she was talking about it. People with cancer can heal themselves if they just change their frequencies. Kind of BS. I just smiled and nodded a lot while she talked. I never got a negative vibe at all, though. Most of her banter was super positive. I can't imagine that she would have done any sort of weird ritual or anything while she was here. But she is very different from us. Spiritually speaking, I wonder if I could just ask her if she did anything strange. We're not close, so I don't want her to think I'm being judgmental. I don't care what she chooses to believe in. The artwork you posted sent chills up me, but is validating that I'm clearly not the only one who has experienced this sort of thing. After OP replied, the same user followed up with another comment. Yeah, that's why I've sent it to you, because even if the artwork is creepy, it happened before, so it's something mostly documented in the Middle Ages Butte, also during the Sumerian times, so basically ancient stuff. The thing with crystals is like this. They are rocks that physically possess some kind of energy, but that's too low to do anything to human. Unless you load it, how you load it, with magic, summoning spirits that basically get attached to it. Moon magic is frequently used, but there are so many ways to load it and so many chants to sing that I wouldn't bet on that one. And yes, it's BS, but you end up haunted in return. Don't ask her. Why would she tell you if she wanted something that crosses the line? Also, keep in mind that people who practice magic don't practice only one kind of magic, but multiple rituals, beliefs, etc., and it can get quite grim. So she might not tell you the whole story. If I were you, I'd look all over the place. Also at the door frames and in the plants' pots. If you have some in the earth of the plants to see if there is some souvenir left. Stones, especially stones since she's into it, coins, hair threads, pins or needles, black pepper, written papers, heck, even small dolls. It can be anything. The hint is that it's sus and it shouldn't be there. Or if you've got a present from her, even if you like it, throw it away. Anything sus that you find, throw it far away from your house. Also, search thoroughly in the room where the door opens and under your bed and mattress. Keep praying. Also, if you put the Bible under your pillow, a small one, it should prevent it to crawl into your bed, but it's a survival tool. It won't make it go away. P.S. I'm sorry that you have to go through this. At least you have a starting point to fix the issue. May you be blessed with God's protection. 2 days later, after following the advice from the comments, OP returned with another update saying that earrings, I found her earrings in a drawer in the bedside table. I threw them in the dumpster. Last night, I slept all night. I think you cracked the code. I'm really glad OP listened to some of the helpful advice in the comments and was finally able to put this whole ordeal behind them. If you've ever experienced anything similar, I'd love to hear your story, so be sure to leave a comment down below. Now it's time for the next story. This one is so bizarre that it honestly made me feel sick while reading it. It's titled, Don't Fuck Ouija Board. So let's begin. This all really kicks off at a childhood friend's house. Let's call her Bella. In order to set the mood, I need to fill y'all in on the history of this house in the late 60s. A husband walks in one night to find his wife in bed with another man. He shot both of them and then himself in what would later on become Bella's older sister's bedroom. Fast forward to when Belle's parents bought the house and found a newspaper article about the double murder-suicide while renovating the home. Well, fast forward a decade, and Bella's family made more renovation to the house. 3 giant black stains had penetrated the carpet and stained the wood floors, presumably from dried blood. They decided to keep the original wood, slapped a finish on it, and called it a day. They keep an area rug over the stains. There are a few other creepy incidents. Belongings go missing, then suddenly reappear. Kitchen cabinets and drawers, all open when no one is around to open them. Doors slamming and seeing doppelgangers, etc. Anyway, getting sidetracked with setting the scene. So we were 13 years old, and Bella and I were sitting in the middle of her bedroom floor with the lights turned off, candle lit, and a Ouija board in between us. Yeah, no, being young and creepy. I had just lost my father a few years prior to cancer and was still grieving. I was angry at him that he left our family and trying to fill the father, sized gaping hole in my heart at that time. Not the best state of mind to be in when you're playing knock knock, who's there with the spirits. We were ready to open up the portal of communication to God knows what in a fucking haunted house. This was never destined to turn out well. We place our hands on the planchette and say, hello, spirits. We'd like to talk to you. Ius wanna know that. Before my dad passed away, I've never been into anything supernatural or spooky. I still believed in God, went to church and prayed for everyone I ever met in my entire life, including their animal. I was a sensitive kid in a few ways and never watched anything too scary for fear of bad thoughts and nightmares. Then we got to asking our list of preteen girly questions for a bit. Eventually they turned a little more serious. Us. Is someone here with us? Bored. Yes, us. Are you a good spirit? Bored. Maybe. Me, are you my dad? I was desperate to make contact with my dad. Bored. No, me. Do you know my dad? Bored. Yeshma. Is he okay? Is he in heaven? Bored. Yes. I was starting to feel very uneasy, and it was like all of my senses heightened at once. I got that, oh, fuck no feeling in the pit of my stomach, like someone or thing is watching you. Then I felt a heavy dark, like pitch black, with no light presence next to us. The goddamn bed squeaked, like someone had sat down on it. I hesitantly looked over and saw an outline of where a human should be on the edge of the bed. I stared at it for what felt like a decade, trying to make sense of what I'm witnessing when I snapped back into the moment and uttered an oh hell no, hurtled over Bella, crossed the room, and slapped the lights on. I refused to play again and demanded we do something. Fucking anything. Else, pure fear and dread lingered deep in my gut. And the feeling of potentially being harmed was strong. We never closed the board out. Adult me understands the huge mistake. But at the time I was young, scared, and had no clue the repercussions of not closing the session out. Looking back, I honestly believe this was the moment something attached itself to me and remains on in the periphery of my life. Later that evening, Bella and I settled down for the night into her bed with her trusty small poodle. Tiny snuggled with us. We were drifting off when Tiny started growling and barking at the foot of the bed at absolutely nothing or so. We thought we calmed her down, and soon Bella was out. I was, unfortunately, wide awake. I felt a presence at the foot of the bed. My gut sank and my heart started racing. I slowly pulled the blankets up over my head and willed myself to sleep and ignore the presence feeling. It started creeping up my side of the bed until it felt like it was standing over me. It lingered there next to my head, just standing there. I eventually wore myself out with terror and fell asleep. That did not last long. My eyes snapped open as I heard the sound of a gun trigger pulled back, and then off in my ear, scared shitless. I shook Bella awake and asked her if she too heard the gun go off. She mumbled no and rolled back over. I cried myself to sleep, feeling trapped and full of dread, nowhere to go. Bella was used to spooky things happening in her house and didn't bat an eye when shit got weird. I, however, was not used to this level of activity and would spend hours after leaving her house wondering if what happened actually happened. The second story happens a few months later when I'm at a sleepover at another childhood friend's house. Let's call them Kit and Kat. Kit was the friend known to be very sensitive to spirits and would see them on an almost daily basis. Well, we were winding down for the night, and I volunteered to sleep on the air mattress since the bed would only fit two. I'm settled in and the lights go out when I start to hear a low guttural cackling in my ear. I had a weird sensation that someone was laying next to me with their face right next to mine. I tried to ignore the feeling of dread and pleaded with myself to fall asleep. The cackling kept up, so I begged Kit and Kat to let me up onto the bed with a distressed explanation that I had heard something on the floor. Once I was squished in the middle of the two girls, I started to calm down enough to attempt to sleep again. I'm laying on my side, facing the wall that was illuminated by a blue light emitted by the alarm clock on the nightstand behind me. Then I see the shadow of a large hand wave at us in the light of the clock. All 5 fingers were perfectly visible, slowly waving back and forth. My heart dropped instantly with the thought that maybe I'm going crazy running through my head, checking to make sure neither of them were the ones doing it. I quietly nudged the two of them and pointed to the wall where they too saw the hand. I was coated in fear and sweat when Kit admits she saw someone sitting in the corner of the room but didn't want to freak us out. Well, that was a shit plan because we were all kind of freaking out at that point. I'm praying for the presence to leave us alone, but some part of me hoped it was my dad. The thought of, if it was really him, you wouldn't be scared kept tugging at my common sense. Kit started to see and hear things. She whispered my nickname that my dad gave me. No one else knew it, and interlaced our fingers. Kit has very dainty hands and almost no upper body strength. She started to squeeze my fingers, causing my heart to race, and a knot formed in my stomach. Her hands felt like my father's large, rough and strong hands. I started to cry so hard that my heart started to hurt. I deeply grieved my dad, but was also terrified shitless. The emotions and general pressure in the room was too much, so we decided to turn on the lights and stay up for as long as we could to talk about all the really weird and scary shit that had just happened. Kit eventually got up and went to the bathroom and came back to leave Kat and I alone to chat. We were caught off guard when a set of beads hanging on the window frame fell to the ground, making us scream. We were jumpy, to say the least. Almost at the same moment, Kit rushed in with something even more spooky to report. When she saw herself in the mirror, her face didn't look like her own. It was as if all of her facial features were sunken in and she looked sick like she had cancer. Then she watched as a large orange orb flew out from her head, and her face faded back to her own. After hearing that, Kit and Kat went back to sleep, while I watched the sun come up. I told my mom the next day what happened, and she immediately asked if I had used a Ouija board. I confessed to using it at Bella's house a while back. She scolded me and begged me to never ever use it again and said they're dangerous and can leave doors to the spirit world open and make it easy for something unsavory to follow me. She explained that the spirit we had experienced during the sleepover with Kit and Kat was a bad spirit mimicking my father, and that is why I felt off and scared. After that, I had some pretty horrible night terrors. More stories for another time, and became terrified of my bedroom. It got so bad that I couldn't look into my mirror for fear someone would be behind me, or be in my room alone at all, for that matter. On the daily, I was riddled with anxiety for the time of night when I'd have to sleep again. I slept with my mom until I was about 16. However, she never minded it. After a while, Mom helped me get back to a normal existence. She cleansed my room with anointed oil and gave it a total makeover. It worked, and I was able to sleep in my bedroom again. However, we hung up curtains to block off my built in vanity to cover the mirror unless I needed it. I had very few night terrors after that, and my anxiety lessened to a normal teenage amount. Years have now passed, and I'm now 30. Throughout the years, I've had many more creepy encounters, and would love to tell them another time. If y'all would like to hear more, don't fuck with Ouija boards. I feel like almost everyone has at least one Ouija board story from when they were younger. Let's see what people had to say in the comments. Below the comment, the OP updated, "The main concern with both interactions is a nefarious entity trying to mimic the spirit of my father. If it was him, I absolutely believe I would have felt calm and in awe, not full of terror and dread." Another said, "I had something similar happen. In the 3rd grade, I was invited over to a birthday party sleepover. The birthday girl brought out a Ouija board. We asked some serious and some silly questions and then finally just went to bed. After that night, I have never slept normal again. I have had numerous encounters with ghosts. For example, I was at our family reunion in Idaho. We were in a cabin with an upper loft. My cousins and I slept up in the loft. The first night I saw a dark shadow with a hat and trench coat. It came towards me and my neck. I shot up, told my aunt, who was the same age as me, and we said a prayer to cast it off. The next day I was telling my mom and grandma, and they said the old owner of the cabin was an alcoholic, and he hung himself in the loft. I have a lot of stories like this. I agree. Never fuck with an Ouija board. I said the cabin was in Utah when dictating this comment. It transcribed Idaho. I called my mom to check and see what state that cabin was in, and it was Idaho. Like, really? Someone shared the same experience that, yep, same thing happened when I first played Ouija. We asked how many spirits were there with us, and I suddenly felt a presence and got freaked out. Didn't know we had to say goodbye to close the portal. Kept waking up with handprint bruises on my legs. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a dead woman. I was haunted for years, had to do a lot of work to clear the spirits and send them to the light. But a comment said, "I have a Ouija now, and it does not work." The OP replied, "Did you try turning it on and off?" Further down, someone else left this warning: "If you don't know how to use a Ouija or spirit board, just do not and never leave the portal opened. If you want to know how to close it and send them back, let me know. They do not belong here. They have no right or dominion over you. But because it was invited to be here, it is using fear to gain that control. You and Bella invited them. You can send them back." Totally agreed with that. Someone commented, "I've been contemplating using one. I wouldn't say I'm superstitious, but I'm definitely curious. To even say, I think my ex has cursed me sounds insane. But myself and my partner moved to be closer to my first daughter, and my ex absolutely hates it. For over a year, everything has crumbled in my life. Mine and my partner's daughter died May 2nd of this year, and this has ultimately brought the idea of a Ouija board into my head." Then the OP said, "I am so incredibly sorry for your loss and the hardships you've been facing. My heart truly goes out to you. Before you use the Ouija board, I'd highly recommend connecting with a local metaphysical store. They can offer some wonderful guidance to ensure you're fully informed, well prepared, and navigating the experience safely. Most people had bad experiences with Ouija boards, but one user disagreed. You found out your dad is in heaven. I don't understand why this is a bad experience." Another said, "I'm a skeptic, but I think the idea is if it was a bad spirit, you can't trust anything they say, and they'll say anything to get you to trust them and further let them get close to you. Since this Ouija board story was so terrifying, I found another Reddit thread where people shared their own worst experiences with Ouija boards, titled, "Anyone ever used a Ouija board?" Here are some of the most interesting comments. The first one reads, "A friend had one, and we used it twice. Some of what was told to me happened in the future. My brother did perform in an orchestra, but I knew this was something he wanted and would get once he went to college. I was supposed to have twins with my second husband. The first husband would be killed on the battlefield. I never married or had children. My friend said some strange things were happening after we used it. So she threw it in the garbage, never used it again, and wouldn't do it again." Another replied, "A few years ago, a friend and I were playing with one at her house. We got a spirit that was seemingly nice, told us he died in a car accident. When we were done with it, we put it in her closet. We were out one day and was hit pretty hard from behind. She hit the steering wheel pretty hard, and I started to pass out. A can of ice-cold soda ran down my leg, and I immediately woke up. We had pretty bad whiplash the next day. Come to find out, her husband got upset that she had the board in their house and took it from the closet and put it in the trunk of her car before the accident. We got back on the board and asked to speak to the same spirit, and it told us to go to hell. I've not messed with one since." A comment said, "Almost the same thing happened to me. I played with the Ouija board at work with some people and nothing happened at the time, but you could definitely feel a presence in the room. A couple weeks later, I had to bring the board back home, and not even 30 minutes into my drive, I had hydroplaned and ran straight into the concrete wall, totaling my truck. It felt like someone just grabbed the wheel. It didn't even feel like I was sliding, had board in the truck with me at the time." Someone commented below that it seems like it's only evil spirits that communicate through Ouija. I remember reading a story of someone whose grandma communicated with her through someone who could hear spirits telling her to stop using it because she had to fight off the evil spirits trying to reach her, the granddaughter. Write down the replies. A comment said, "Same bad luck followed me right after I foolishly used one. This thing is not a joke." And then someone said, "The problem is that entities who come through can pretend to be anyone. One never knows with whom one is actually communicating." Then another added, "Correct. People believe they're speaking to dead loved ones. Nope. Those are demon spirits. And once you invite them into your life, you don't have the authority to make them leave. They will only fully leave by the authority of Jesus." But someone gave a different point that, so you think that when humans pass on, they all become demons. That is short-sighted, to say the least. A basic premise of physics is that energy cannot be destroyed, only transferred or transformed. We pass on to another plane. If we are able to go into the light, if we are not, we are in limbo on this plane. We are at the same level of evolution or ascension, but we do not carry a meat suit around. Demons are a totally different species. They are fallen angels who become 180 degrees different from what they were. They have reigned over this plane in part to present opportunities for us to grow spiritually and emotionally. We move to the next comment. A user named Desperate Alfalfa 2751 said, "Yes, I contacted a friend who had been killed on his motorbike 1 month earlier. He spelled out, 'Stop this. It's bad for your soul.' We stopped and burned the board." Then another asked, "Hoy shit, did it freak you out or were you more relieved knowing it was your friend?" Then he replied, "It was unnerving. Nick was a good guy studying electrical engineering, rebuilt an old Norton from scratch that he died on. He wasn't a big talker in life. And when he spoke, we listened. We were more like, if Nick says no, it's a hard no." And someone said, "I would never touch one anyway, but never, ever, ever, ever even touching one in a dream. Thank you, Nick. And I am sorry for your loss. We need people with good souls and hearts in the world more than ever." Another comment shared their experience with the Ouija board. "Yes, as a kid in middle school, a friend, and I made one on construction paper and used the front part of a CD case after taking the cover out, LOL. We tried to contact my Nana that had passed as a toddler. We asked yes and no questions first. Asked if we could reach her and was told yes. Eventually asked if it was her. Yes. The next part is fuzzy, but I distinctly remember what happened after we asked names to confirm. It spelled Chuck, followed by haha, game over, goodbye. We noped out, haven't played with one since, and the OP replied, my mom had experiences with one. Back in the 90s, I may tell her story with one day it was similar to this, and then that user said, spooky? Never shared this with anyone but my wife or heard anyone else getting messed with. Like this, would love to hear if when you're up to Merry Christmas, if you celebrate scrolling down, one comment read, I asked for one for Christmas once and got it. Christmas Day, I was using it by myself because I never wanted to get married. I asked the board if I would and it gave me 2 initials. I didn't know anybody with those initials and I knew I wasn't moving the planchet. It freaked me out, so I never used the board again. When my niece and nephew found it at my house years later, I removed the pin from the planchet and told them it was broken. I threw the board away when I moved. I did marry eventually. I don't remember the initials the board gave me, but they weren't my husband's though. They could have been the ex I lived with long time and had to divorce. I really don't know. I haven't touched one since. When the OP replied, that would be really odd if it was the initials. The user wrote, they were odd to me, and I could say they were my ex's because his initials were in a similar spot on the board, but I didn't meet him for several years later, and I truly don't remember. I do know I wasn't moving the planchet, and mine were the only fingers on it. It was slow and smooth, but without hesitation. I was so incredibly freaked out by that I told everybody there. You can guess their reaction. I wasn't ridiculed, but I wasn't believed either. Another user shared a pretty disturbing experience. I've been using the board now for over 10 years and never had an issue. The board is misunderstood and suffers an unfair reputation due to psychics spreading rumors about it in the 1960s when the board was being mass-produced by Parker Brothers under the guise of a game. The psychics saw this as a threat to their bottom line, as the psychics were charging $150 for a seance which lasted an hour, while the board could be purchased for cheaper or at most a one-time payment, but by worth it in the long run. This was about money, not about truth. The board works well with spirit guides. I communicated with them clearly and got to know them so much better using this tool. The board, however, is more draining to a spirit guide's energy. So they will say when they get tired, but will use the board again. Even my spirit guides recommended to use the board. 1 month later, he updated a comment saying, the board is meant to be used with one person. The spirit guide will guide your finger or cursor to every letter, number, or response. And this is what leads them into getting tired because it's draining for them to do this energy-wise. There is no need to close out the session either. Again, it was just to add to the atmosphere and thrill of the so-called game. Remember, the Ouija board is a tool like runes, tarot, or crystal balls, not a game nor a toy. Then someone asked, how do you know you aren't contacting an evil spirit? Then he said, I'll share this story with you. I had an uncle who was dying due to a disease incurred over his life. All the doctors and experts who dealt with his condition, along with all the family, said he was a day or so away from dying. I asked my spirit guides if he indeed would die, and they said no. My uncle then made a recovery over the next few weeks against all odds. Now, I know you're going to say I had a 5,050 chance of being right or wrong. That may be true to some extent, but when you factor in that doctors and experts who knew more than me said otherwise, based on their knowledge, this can't be completely looked at in such simple terms. Also in Europeanon, what would an evil spirit do on an Ouija board? The next comment read, yes, but it's Christmas and I'm tipsy. So I'm going to try to keep the story short. I was 15 and used a homemade Ouija board with a friend. I had a BF that just died a couple of months earlier. I had only been with him a couple of months. He had told me he felt like he was going to die soon. I said he was crazy. He's too young. He got in a car accident. So I tried the Ouija with a friend. Friend didn't know him. The Ouija said it was him and used the nickname he used for me that my friend didn't know about. So I knew it wasn't her. She had asked him if it was in heaven or hell. It said hell. She asked it to do something like move the sweater off of the table that we were at. It said no. She said do something else then. I started hearing the dishes rattling, and I started hearing the dog in the backyard move around back and forth. He was chained with a big, bulky chain, and I could hear the thick chain scrape back and forth on the cement floor outside. Then it all stopped, and the phone rang. I got up to answer it. It was a landline since this was in the mid-90s. No one was on the other end. We ended up stopping, and she went home. I couldn't sleep for a few weeks, and I felt like something was there. My parents' 25th anniversary was coming up, and they were going to renew their vows. They wanted me to remove my nose ring for the church, and I didn't want to. The morning of the day, I felt someone remove my nose ring. I asked them if they did it, and they said no. Still, 30 years later, they claim it wasn't them. About a week later, I was in bed in the morning, half asleep, half awake, and I felt a hug Afterwards, I no longer felt the presence around at night anymore. I rushed through this so you can ask questions. When someone asked, "Who hugged you?" User Cherryberry0611 said, "I don't know. It was very early in the morning. I was in bed and I felt like I was half asleep, half awake when I felt it. It just felt very comforting. I opened my eyes afterwards, but nothing was there. The same thing with whatever pulled out my nose ring. I was in bed early in the morning and the sensation of my nose ring being pulled out woke me up. But when I opened my eyes, nothing was there. I checked my bed and sheets for the piercing, but couldn't find it. I never found the piercing afterwards." Edit, sorry if I didn't make it clear in the story. This entity claimed to be the BF that died in the crash, and I find a comment that really scared me so much. Yes, I have. When I was 13, some friends of mine I met over the summer got an old one from an antique shop in the early 80s. We met BC. Our families were all staying at the same hotel. Turns out, this hotel was built in the early 1930s and happened to be haunted already. We played with this thing, not realizing that this can open up a door to negative entities. Things started getting weird and vivid. Nightmares began happening to all of us. Me, especially BC, I had it in my possession. I then started having shadow beings seemingly stalking Mius. We decided to throw it away, but the paranormal activity around us still ensued. All of us who messed with that thing went on to have terrible tragedies happen to us later on. Unfortunately, such as overdose and suicide, terrible accidents, and death. Come to find out later on that a particular demon controls that board and any communication arising from it. Also, you could gain unwanted attachments and not even realize it until it's too late. I've taken many steps to rid myself of attachments and cleanse energetically to protect myself now. But I've had a lot of tragedy and strange, weird stuff happen to me. And I was told by a medium it was due to an attachment from messing with that antique Ouija board. You're essentially opening a portal of sorts. And there's no telling what will happen or what will come through. I definitely advise against it. All my goosebumps when I saw this story, because I and my friends tried Ouija board 3 times. And fortunately, we are still safe now. I hope this story serves as a reminder to be careful with the choices we make, especially when they involve things we don't fully understand. Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, there are still plenty of mysteries in this world that none of us can truly explain. You'll never know what might be watching from the darkness, or what could be standing just outside your window while you're asleep. And that's the end of the very first video on this channel. So what do you think? Do you enjoy creepy Reddit stories like these? Let me know in the comments below, or just share whatever's on your mind. Honestly, every single comment means a lot to me and motivates me to keep making more videos like this. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next story. I'm Deep, and I'll see you next time.